and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and this time I've got a group of friends who also make great podcasts. They make great podcasts, and I make this one. So I'm joined, first of all, by Mike Lord from Tabletop Genesis. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good to be here. Happy to be chatting about this fun topic.
Yes, we're talking about Christmas music, which is why we're all music aficionados.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we've got from flipping out, Kev. You're doing all sorts from the Tom Petty Project, Seaside Pod Review, which people who know Queen will know that's a take on Seaside Rendezvous. And what are the other shows again, Kev?
Ultimate Catalog Clash is my other sort of mainstay. Yeah.
Oh, just three. Just three.
Just three at the moment. Just three.
Oh.
Yeah, super happy to be part of a great panel. I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be fun.
Also joined by my great friend Jason Barnard from the Strange Brew podcast. Jason?
Yep, a pleasure to be here. Look forward to being a guest. It's the first time for me. It's normally on the other end.
Well, you've been on you were one of my first guests, actually, on Pods Like Us 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not forgetting that.
And last but not least, we've got Stephen Nicholson, who does Trimming the Musical Fat and Trimming the Movie Fat. And we've got any more fat to be trimmed soon, Stephen?
You never know. It's going to be a new year very soon. Might find other things to trim as well. Might be trimming my waistline after Christmas.
Well, we're going to get some trimmings up for this.
Well, we shall see. But I know, glad to be here, Marv, and it's nice to be a guest and not hosting, so can actually relax.
So, Kev, the shows that you do, then explain to people what your shows are about.
The Tom Petty Project it's just a deep dive podcast on Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Tom Petty Solo, Mudcrutch, Traveling Wilburys, going song by song, album by album. Then I have conversations with musicians, guests, fans, different people connected with Tom. So that's a solo thing. And I started that podcast thinking, hey, this would be a cool idea. I don't think anyone's ever tried doing a deep dive on an artist before. Of course, there are 8 million of them out there, and I'm like late to the party, but it's going really well. 200 episodes in. This week, I released my 200th episode, so that's fun. Seaside Pod Review, a Queen podcast, which is a little bit more of an irreverent look at a very eclectic catalogue. I think we can all agree that Queen's quality varies, the mileage varies. So that's been a lot of fun. I do that with my friend Randy Woods, who's not a catalogue Queen fan. He's more of a greatest hits fan. So again, exposing him to different music has been a lot of fun. And then the Ultimate Catalog Clash, which has been going for just over a year, I do with my friend Corey Morissette. And that's where we take one artist per season or part of the catalogue or the whole catalogue and try and figure out through, very scientific forensic process, which is the best album. And then we also have little games in there, which I always lose. And that's just a whole lot of fun too. So all music, all the time.
Cool. And Jason?
So Strange Brew started in, I think, 2008. And over 450 episodes, I think. The number is I'm a bit unclear about that. And every single week I have a guest, often an artist from the 60s and 70s, or can be a bit broader than that. And I've had... Well, it's a bit of a blur, given that I speak to people every single week. But yeah, so last week was Tony Banks, and then next week is Bruce Woolley, who co-wrote Buggles' Video Killed the Radio Star. So that's just a random selection of what's going on at the minute.
That's a good shout. Bruce Woolley, legend.
Nice guy.
Who know. Yeah. Mike, Tabletop Genesis?
Tabletop Genesis certainly doesn't have the numbers that the last two podcasts talked about. I think we just hit number 70 or something like that, but we've been going since about 2015 or so. We kind of do episodes when we feel like it, and we were trying to do them monthly for a year or two, and it was just too much. But we've covered all the main Genesis albums, and recently we've gotten in this idea of kind of combining an interview and an album review, where we had Ann Phillips on to talk about Geese and the Ghost. And our last episode we had Jonathan Mover, the drummer, on from the GTR album to talk about GTR. And both of those were kind of maybe not a model for moving forward 100% with the podcast, but it was like it certainly will be a way that we can continue doing this, because our modus operandi was to do an album review for each episode, and sometimes have guests, sometimes not, and sometimes do interviews with people. And so after we did the main albums, it's like, well, it's a bit of diminishing returns at some point, because there's a lot of solo albums out there, but how many can you actually really have an in-depth conversation about? And the answer can be all of them, but how many people would want to hear us talk about Missing Links Part 3 from Ant Phillips? You know, that's, again, great music and everything, but would it be compelling at that point? And so, but having guests on to talk about a specific album, perhaps that they've been involved with, like with Jonathan Mover, was fantastic. And he was a great interview. He dished the dirt, as they say. So it was a good chat.
Die-hard Genesis fans would love the deep dives into that, like that album of Ants that you're on about, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're fun conversations, and I think it's just like it's something that Tom, my partner, and I, who a friend who we do this together with, it's kind of like what interests us, and as long as we're having fun with it, we figure somebody else out there would probably enjoy it too. So, you know, that's, which I think is the key to doing a good podcast, is that you actually like. You like the people that you're talking with, and you actually enjoy the topic of conversation. You may disagree about things, but that's the fun of it there too.
Okay, and Stephen, explain your two shows.
Okay, Trimming the Musical Fat, we started in 2021, and essentially each episode we take an album which we think is overlong and try and trim it down to be under 50 minutes to fit onto a single final record. And occasionally that does take us into double album territory. So recently we had Elton John's Blue Moves. So try and get that down to under 50 minutes, which was quite a challenge. And so, yeah, it's great to get some guests on, discuss the albums, and have a bit of fun trying to reduce the number of songs on it. And on Trimming the Movie Fat, which we started in 2022, a very similar thing where each episode will take a look at a movie franchise. So, for example, Superman or Jaws, and obviously just talk about each of the movies and decide which deserve to be erased from history. So, for example, Superman 4 and Jaws the Revenge.
Well, it's got to be those, hasn't it, really?
I don't know if you've tackled Queen the Miracle yet. I wonder if you can get that down to an EP, because that's probably deserves it. Oh, you did? Okay.
We did. We did, and we waited until the most recent special edition. I forget what they called it, the deluxe edition, whatever it was called. So we did a show where we took into account all the different versions of the songs, and just picked what we wanted on there. So we did it, and it was good fun. And there was obviously, you know yourself, Kevin, there was so much good stuff that they didn't put on it, which should have been on it.
Real
so it was fun, actually.
And you're Roger Taylor in your band.
Yeah. So it was great fun, or the new version of The Miracle, which I really quite enjoyed, the different ending, which I quite enjoyed. So, it was fun to do that, and we had quite a different track listing than what Queen picked.
But would you have put Face It Alone on there?
Yes.
Yep.
I really like that. You?
I've not spent long enough with it yet, I don't think. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sold completely.
No, I don't think I have either. No.
It grew on me. That was one of those songs where a bit underwhelmed, then kind of kept playing it, and eventually I said, you know what? I like that. We're putting it on.
So I'll start with Kevin, because I know that Kevin is prepared for this. So what sort of, how do you lead up to Christmas? And I know that Kevin has a really interesting Christmas tradition.
I'll start with that then, because I think that is definitely, I won't bury the lead there. Mm-hmm. So over here, everyone comes around to my house. Up until very, very recently, of the two siblings, my wife has a brother, we're the only ones with kids. So it makes sense. Everyone piles around to our house, and it was great then, because when I was drinking, I could have a drink. I don't have to move anywhere. It's great. And so about 3 years ago, we always play Christmas music, and I've got my playlist and, got probably 30, 40 Christmas songs in it, because I love Christmas music. But me and my daughter really likes heavy rock. She likes her rock and roll on the edge, and she loves Iron Maiden. We both love Iron Maiden. That's a shared love. So 3 years ago, we thought, what we should do? We'll put on our Iron Maiden playlist, and we'll put it fairly low just in the background, and we'll see if anyone clocks it. And we got to about 3.5 hours before my mother-in-law turned around and said, oh, what is this Number of the Beast we're listening to? What is this Christmas song? This little French Canadian lady, she was a little bit offended by him. So we do that now every Christmas. We see how long we can, when we turn it on at different times, see how long we can play it before someone notices that we're actually listening to the reincarnation of Benjamin Breek and not Merry Christmas, Everyone. So, which is a lot of fun.
I'm guessing, Mike, where you live, you must have a really nice tradition and a lead up to Christmas.
Yeah, generally, as we get into this season, it depends upon, family commitments and things like that. In growing up, we used to do at my dad and stepmother's house, we used to do kind of on Christmas Eve, there was a big both family gathering and kind of friends of the family type of thing. And that's something actually as an adult, I've thought about if I could try to do that myself, but I have a lot of people scattered all over the place, so it wouldn't quite be the same. But but there's a lot of those type of traditions where for me, it's all about the people, about whether it's a big group of people getting together or a smaller one. It's kind of nice to have that kind of anchor to the end of your year to get things into. Music wise, I do have a tradition of playing this CD that I have here that I'll show on the camera here. It is the Jingle Cats, which some of you may have heard of. This is kind of the classic idea of somebody kind of took some Christmas songs. This is probably back in the old sampling days of the 90s when I bought this, and kind of put meowing cats doing the melodies of these songs here. And while I love this album for many reasons, there is one moment after I bought this post college in probably 94 or 95 or so, where I was living with a former roommate, and I was kind of complaining about not having any expendable income in my life because, again, poor post-college student and everything. And my friend looks at me, goes to my CD rack and pulls out this CD and says, "This is the definition of expendable income." And so I was like, can't really argue with that, so maybe I do have more expendable income than I thought. But tends to be Christmas morning, I will put this on, and whether I'm with people or on my own or whatever it might be, that is one of my holiday traditions, I will say.
Do your cats actually join in? That's the next question.
Not yet. I've been trying to train them, but hasn't worked out yet.
You got to tune them first. I've got my Maine Coon is tuned to D flat, and my little stripy cat is tuned to F. So I just need a couple more, and we're playing like a xylophone.
Get them in the middle, exactly.
Jason, do you do anything on the lead up to Christmas?
I think my wife's tried to introduce a tradition, which she likes to get a Chinese takeout on Christmas Eve. I don't know if that's just her or other people do it, but it's not necessarily the worst tradition. But I don't know if that's just us or whether anyone else does that.
It's interesting because you go over to Asian countries like Japan and China, and they have this Christmas in July thing, don't they? Isn't there this tradition as well that during Christmas in July in one country or another they have a KFC or something for Christmas, or something, which is just weird.
I will say that the Chinese here in the U.S. at least, it's a general kind of tradition story that a lot of Jewish families who don't celebrate Christmas will get Chinese food on Christmas itself. That's kind of a standard story, at least. Again, I don't know how. It's probably not 100% true because no story like that ever is, but it certainly is something that even Jewish friends of mine have kind of joked about that's something that they do.
podslikeus@gmail.com if anyone wants to tell us about that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, Marv, you were going to give details to send you some takeout.
Yep, I can give you details to that. Just contact me and I'll give you the address and we can... Why would I want takeout when I've got Louisa's lovely food?
Very true.
Stephen, you must have some great traditions with your house is chock full of kids.
Well, two that I know about, and
those hiding under the stairs.
And Susan, but yeah, similar to Jason, one of the things that we started doing maybe 4 or 5 years ago is, so myself, my wife, and 2 sons, we would go out for Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve because it's less busy. and it's not as expensive. And to cut a long story short, what's happened in the interim period is the rest of my family have went, oh, that sounds nice. Can we join you? So now we've gone from 4 of us to my parents, my brother and his wife, my sister, her partner, and her children. So
That's a nice production right there.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, that's talk about building your audience. So we now do that every Christmas Eve, which is nice, which means you can relax a bit on Christmas Day and usually head up to my parents and get well fed and watered up there. But other than that, the other thing we like to do in the lead up to Christmas is, love going to see Christmas movies or movies that are termed very loosely Christmas movies like Gremlins and Die Hard. And here we're quite lucky as well. Usher Hall usually put on a couple of Christmas movies with live orchestra. Nice. So things like Love Actually, and this year they're doing Home Alone. So I'm going to see that in 2 weeks' time with the live orchestra, which will be fantastic. Those are the kind of 2 main things we would get up to most years, which are good fun.
I had a question, because we've got a North American and a transplanted North American on the call, and then 3 Brits. And I remember growing up, when I moved here, my first Christmas here, it got to about sort of 6 o'clock or so on Christmas Eve. I said, okay, where are we going tonight? Where are we heading out to? And my wife said, well, we're going to church. I was like, what? What are you talking about going to church? We're going on the lash, aren't we? She's like, all the pubs are closed, Kev. So just wondering, like, growing up, you guys, I'm sure you must have gone, that's Christmas Eve, is you go out and celebrate, right? To a ferocious extent where Christmas morning isn't that enjoyable for the first couple of hours.
I remember when I still lived at home and did that, on more than one occasion, but this is when, still living at home, my younger brother and sister were all still living at home as well, and my sister, who was younger, shaking me on Christmas Day, come on, it's Christmas Day. And I'm just lying there with about 2 hours sleep and a hangover. Please leave me. Get your presents. Please just leave me.
But you've also got the thing in the UK where, you'd have like a family Christmas, and then all the guys would leave and go to the pub and leave back in the day, they'd just leave all the women to do all the, you can all sort that out. We're all off to the pub. So I'm guessing you don't have that there either then, Kev.
No. I still got my attached, right? So wouldn't dream of trying that.
Yeah, I wouldn't get away with that anymore, saying, work's finished, I'm going to the pub. Not a chance. No. Not that I would want to. I need to be fresh for Christmas Day.
Of course you old. You want
now, yeah.
All
those days are gone.
Well, of course you want to stay home and help out, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you know what's good for you, yes.
There you go.
You're right.
I'm worried now that all Kev's Christmas shout-out songs are going to be, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, Clairvoyant.
Well, you got 3 of the 5. Do you want to go for the full set? I tried to pick a couple at least that I thought probably, although Michael, you might have a couple that you might not have heard of. But I'll sort of open with, I think it's still my favourite Christmas song is Stop the Cavalry by John and Louis.
Yeah.
There's just something about that I think if you're of our generation, it just sort of connects with me. And especially having served in the military, there's always that thing of, the 1914, whatever, the Christmas truce between the trenches, and they all got up and played soccer and all that kind of stuff. So that imagery and that sort of community and togetherness always comes through in that song for me. I don't know if is everyone else aware. I'm assuming everyone else knows that song quite well. So
yeah.
Then thank God It's Christmas by Queen, of course, has to be on my list. And not just because it's Queen, but I do really just genuinely like that song. It sounds like Christmas, it feels like Christmas, and I'm sure it smells like Christmas. 2,000 Miles by the Pretenders, I had to throw in there because I'd kind of forgotten about that until I was prepping for this. But it's 5th on my playlist, and I always repeat that one when it comes on. And then a couple of ones that probably I might be the only person who's listening to these is Christmas in Prison by John Prine.
Okay.
I don't know if you know John
I haven't
Prine.
heard of that. That's
country Americana type of vibe, folky, absolutely brilliant lyricist. And I just wanted to read the last verse to you. So the searchlight in the big yard swings round with the gun, and spots like the snowflakes, like the dust in the sun. It's Christmas in prison. There'll be music tonight. I'll probably get homesick. I love you. Good night. But just think of that. It's kind of the counterpoint to the military thing is we forget that there are other people away from Christmas and away from home at Christmas for whatever reason. And I think that really brings it home. And Brian's just such a great vocalist that he really punched it home. And then the last one I had is Old Little Town of Bethlehem by Mario Lanza.
Wow.
That was where I grew up. My granddad used to play Mario Lanza's Christmas album, and so he loved all the tenors, and so that's always kind of part of my musical DNA, and I have to listen to that every Christmas. So those are my 5. It's a bit varied, a bit eclectic, but that's what I got for you.
I think it's cool to have an eclectic. Hopefully, people are taking note of this and they're going, I'm going to listen to that now and try all this. Because that's what we all do, isn't it? You know, we all listen to music shows and we'll come across songs and we'll think, I didn't know that song before. I'll add that to my playlist and I'll get that.
Yep.
We all do it. I mean, you guys cost me a fortune in how much money I have to spend on buying records. So I'm interested in what Jason's top 5 will be because, you know, will they all be people that he's had as a guest?
No, I don't think I've had any of these as a guest, so I haven't purposely done that. I've only got one song which is deliberately obscure, so the rest are vaguely familiar. The first one is the obscure one, and I did actually a podcast maybe about 15 years ago on Christmas songs, and this was in it, and this was the obscure one. So it's a London-based sort of psychedelic pop trio, released a single in 1967. The trio were 2.5, and they had a song called Christmas Will Be Around Again. It was on the Decca label, and it's just a gorgeous bit of psychedelic pop, brilliant harmonies, humour, and a gear change in it as well, which gives it's quite psychedelic. The one thing that people, certainly UK listeners, will be familiar with is that one of that trio then went on to co-write the theme for the children's TV show Rainbow.
Wow, cool.
No way.
So for those that like their British children's TV in the 1970s. Then I've got stuff people will be familiar with. Joni Mitchell's River, which is Christmas related. There's the piano theme that kind of takes off Jingle Bells, and it's said that it's kind of linked to Joni Mitchell's relationship with Graham Nash, and it's just gorgeous. And the album's beautiful, the album being Blue. Third song is Gaudete. I don't know how, by Steeleye Span. I don't know how familiar that is outside of the UK, but that's an old choral hymn. And Steeleye Span, a folk rock group, do a brilliant vocal arrangement of that, and just very Christmassy. Then I've got, and this is kind of like George Harrison's failed Christmas single, Ding Dong, Ding Dong. Yes. It's kind of like post-Slade, post-Wizard. It's not as good as Slade and Wizard, but the fact that it's been rarely played, which means it isn't overplayed, and it's quite optimistic and does link in with the New Year as well, so it's a bit more than Christmas. And then finally, possibly the best, other than maybe Joni Mitchell's song, it's I Believe in Father Christmas by Greg Lake. And that song has got a real added bite to it as well, kind of anti-commercialisation of Christmas. Does feel very Christmassy, but there is a little darker undercurrent in there.
There's an interesting thing there with two of those that you mentioned, where you said about the Greg Lake and then the Joni Mitchell, which is something that you find in a few Christmas songs, and I do like myself personally, where there's a hint of nostalgia to it, because you've got the Greg Lake that references Lieutenant Kijé, the classical music piece. So
is it Prokofiev?
Yeah, by Prokofiev. So you've got that's sort of like hints, that's got that bit of that in there, and then you've got the bit, like you said, with Jingle Bells in the Joni Mitchell, and you don't find it so much in music, but when it's there, it's almost something that grabs your attention, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. So that's my 5.
Okay. Right. What are Mike's 5?
Well, I will say that I Believe in Father Christmas was also on my list, and so bravo for that. One that gets stuck in my head all the time, and maybe because I was working in a movie theater when this movie was out, is the song "Let It Snow," which I actually had to look up to be like, I realized I didn't know who actually did the version that was at the end of Die Hard 2, and it's an artist named Vaughn Monroe. And it's the song that's like, when the weather outside is frightful and the fire is so delightful. It's just it's maybe even less Christmassy and just more seasonal of the winter time. And it's, once the song is in my head, it's hard to pry it out of there. This is not in any particular order, but I'll go with, you mentioned George Harrison. I'll go with the two Beatles versions, both, Happy Christmas, War is Over from John Lennon, and although I know people hate this song, I do have a soft spot for Paul McCartney's Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time. I had a friend of mine who almost disowned me because I was like, that song's not that bad. And it's another one of those songs that it is an earworm for me. Like, once it's in there, it can just rattle around in my brain for days. So there's that one. And it's not less of a particular song, but I'll pull out a CD here that I got also. I talked about the Jingle Cats, so my leaning towards Christmas music does lean maybe towards, as the English say, taking the piss a little bit. But this is a very sincere album from the California Guitar Trio, and it's an album of their arrangements of a variety of Christmas songs without the lyrics. It's just the three of them playing guitar with this. And so the guitar usually takes the melody, obviously. And that, maybe because it is purely instrumental, it just is one of those albums that works for me. And so, that would be, as a kind of totality, I would say that's kind of my number 5 there. With honorable mention to another prog Christmas album, Chris Squire's Swiss Choir album,
yes,
which, if anybody has that, is, at least for this American, a bit more obscure. I think that he pulled a lot of these Christmas hymns from maybe his days as being a choir boy, but most of them were not familiar to me. And so that's something that I enjoy also, because I like Squire singing, and I also just think that the unfamiliarity, for me at least, kind of made it a solid album to kind of throw on at Christmas, which again is one of those ones you can kind of have on the background, and it feels Christmassy, but if people aren't really listening, they don't necessarily realize that it's a bit more rocky than some Christmas albums out there.
I think, progressive rock musicians, I think there's a certain thing where with them, because they've got the eclecticism in their music going, we're putting all this, that, and the other in. I think it suits them when they go to doing music that is Christmas based, because they can pull all these elements out that are natural to them because they pull from all over the spectrum anyway. So, exactly. So when they make Christmas music, I think it's almost natural, and it's very rare that something Christmassy by a progressive act would fail.
Right. I'm trying to think of an example where it doesn't work, but nothing is coming to mind. So that's probably a good thesis right there.
Yeah. For instance, I bet Jason knows this one, the compilation A Very Prog Christmas, where most of it works and some of it sort of misses.
I think it's the church influence. A lot of them grew up in the church and then bring that into their music, and then there's obviously the tie with Christmas and church. So, just one thing on the John Lennon song is, it's a total rip off of a song called Stew Ball.
Yeah,
is it Stew Ball is a racehorse or something? Yes. I remember hearing the Hollies version of Stew Ball, Stew Ball, and it's like, yeah, just listen to Stew Ball. It's like. It's really interesting. I don't know how he didn't get caught on that one.
Well, it's because it's based on a traditional song, isn't it? So it had gone out of so it became public domain essentially. So he was able just to to rip the music and reuse it for another song, which is a shame because that's actually my number one. So what about you, Stephen? What are your five?
Well, I'm also going in for that Stew Ball rip-off. John Lennon, The Thief, Happy Xmas War is Over, which is a fantastic song. I hadn't been made. You're looking at three of my choices. I'm obviously going to see Home Alone in concert in a few weeks, and three of these songs are actually featured in the movie. But yeah, John Lennon would be in there. Darlene Love, Christmas Baby Please Come Home, which is from the greatest Christmas album of all time, Phil Spector's Christmas album there. I love that tune, the big Phil Spector production on it. My mum's favourite Christmas tune, which is Oh Holy Night. And obviously there's a multitude of versions out there, but very grand and almost operatic. And there's a version by a band, I think they're Italian, Il Divo, that might be in the name, Il Divo, which is a fantastic, very dramatic version. And I think my favourite of all is Silent Night, which is, I think, an old German song, isn't it? And again, there's a multitude of versions out there, and I suppose that's quite a sad little song in a lot of ways, isn't it? And the version which I only discovered in the last couple of years is by Eva Cassidy, which is essentially her with her acoustic guitar singing it, and it's beautiful. What a fantastic version. And I wanted to try and pick something a bit more current, and when I say current, 21st century. So, and you know how sometimes on Apple or Spotify you'll sign up to a Christmas playlist and you'll maybe hear stuff you've not heard before. And I remember hearing this, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it's Kelly Clarkson, Underneath the Tree. And I love that song. So there's my token modern song to the Christmas playlist there. But yeah, that's kind of a very old school sounding Christmas song there, which I really enjoy. But as part of doing this, though, Marv, I have to say, it's when you go through a Christmas playlist and you realise there's so many songs on there which are not really Christmas songs, like Frankie Goes to Hollywood, The Power of Love, which is an amazing song, but it's not a Christmas song.
Great song, though.
Christmas thing, it's Christmas. It's an amazing song, yeah.
E17 isn't a Christmas song either.
No, Stay Another Day, yeah. In fact, I'm sure it's about Tony Mortimer's deceased brother, so it's not very festive either. Yeah, it's played at Christmas. Yeah,
they've added some bells to it.
That's it.
But that's the trick, though, isn't it? You just add some sleigh.
The sleigh bells. It's just a giveaway. You talked about Oh Holy Night there too, though, and I love that song too. And I think if you get a really, really good singer taking that on, it really is just, it becomes spiritual, even if you're secular, it becomes spiritual. Right. But it's one of those songs where you think, you go to a sort of a Christmas performance and you see an 8-year-old and you think, oh, no, please don't. And then it's because it's just, you need pipes for that song. Like, it's really hard, you know. I was like, oh, geez, okay, just please do well.
Especially the main part when it all comes together, which, you know, if it's done right, it sends shivers down your spine. If it's done right, yeah, totally agree.
What was the version of Oh Holy Night that your mum used to probably listen to the most?
Oh, I don't know, Marv.
Or does listen to the most? Like Johnny Mathis or something?
Probably Johnny Mathis, yeah. Cause I'm trying to think where she would have maybe first heard it. And also it would have been my grandmother. And I'm trying to think what she might have had, you know, back on records back in the day. But yeah, that would kind of be in the right ballpark, something like Johnny Mathis, yeah.
I only ask that because, you know, these things like getting really nostalgic and what's it at the moment. But, you know, because I think with everybody, this sort of when you've got a close family, there's bits where you remember things that your parents liked and then you almost automatically like it as well. It's a specific song or something that you're drawn to because of the nostalgia of enjoying it with them.
Yeah, I think that carries over. I mean, John Lennon's my dad's favorite solo artist, and his favorite band's the Beatles. So, yeah.
Distant Drums by Jim Reeves is that song for me because it's my granddad's favorite song and he passed away a long time ago. Not a Christmas song by any stripe, but he always played it at Christmas. So that memory is just associated with that time of the year, right?
Have you got a song like that, Jason?
Trying to think. Not really. I'd say the nearest is the Frankie Goes to Hollywood, The Power of Love, just because it's been played around Christmas, and then obviously it added a very Christmas related video with the following the star. So I don't think I've got anything particularly personal on that, but yeah, I think Frankie would be the nearest equivalent just because of the time of year it's played.
Mike, have you got one?
I was trying to think actually, and maybe the Let It Snow I mentioned is not quite Christmassy, but it has snow in it, so it probably does count as a Christmas song. Yeah, there's nothing that's jumping out to me. I'm sure I'll think of 18 songs when this wraps up, but just talking about the family memories and kind of what our parents might have liked. I know one year for Christmas, I bought my mom a CD of kind of all the Elvis Christmas songs that were out there because she was growing up. She was a kid in the 50s, basically, and so had all this Elvis music that I think when she went off to college, her mother threw it all away. My grandmother did. So, and my mom never forgave her mother for that, and said to me, I will never throw your stuff away when you go off to college. And she didn't. So I felt a little good restoring some of that Elvis to her life at that point. And as much as Elvis can be poked fun at, there's some really good music on that, especially in those Christmas songs. Blue Christmas, just even thinking about it starts going through my head, and it can be stuck there again for weeks at this point, at this time of the season. So makes me think I should probably actually buy that CD myself or download the music somewhere. So just to have it.
Do you know, the other week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we recorded one of the December 1964 episodes for Toppermost, the Poppermost.
Okay.
And we've had to talk about Blue Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I had the, dare I say, pleasure of creating what's called a supercut made up of, I think, 23 different versions of Blue Christmas that I've linked together.
Wow. Just made that into a playlist and kind of just one continuous loop, keep it going. So,
that was an interesting night trying to listen to because there were over 700 versions, and I'm like, which ones do I pick?
Yeah. How do you narrow that down?
Oh. Like some unholy human centipede going on
there. Some of them are dreadful.
Oh, I'm sure.
Bruce Springsteen did a great version, by the way.
Okay.
But what you said about Elvis, that reminded me of when I was really young and we used to stay at my grandma's on my dad's side. She's no longer with us, obviously, and I remember that that Elvis would be on the radio, and there's a specific song. I mean, it's not Christmassy, but "Are You Lonesome Tonight" would come on the radio. And he'd start singing and he'd be going, "Are you lonesome tonight?" And then she'd go, "Oh, yes, I am, Elvis." And she answered all the questions while it was playing.
Right.
Which is just brilliant.
That was her routine. She got to talk to Elvis that way. So that's good.
She did. Right. 3 of my choices for Christmas songs. I'm changing it up this year because I've done it. This is my 4th year of doing Christmas songs. So I'll keep a few of them, and I've put a bit of a suggestion to people at the end. So yeah, I've picked 1 and 2 are the John Lennon and the Paul McCartney songs. John Lennon, because I think the message of the song, as opposed to the music, is the whole message of what the song's about that gets me, which in a way bugs me in some ways, because if you only listen to it at Christmas, you're only getting the message at Christmas. But I think the whole thing is an all year round message where we should all be working towards peace and trying to get that togetherness in the world and unity. Wonderful Christmas Time hit me at the right moment because it came out around the same time as my 10th birthday. late in 1980, I think it was it? I think I can't remember now. But yeah, that just grabbed me at the right time, and it's nostalgic. It's simple. It's a bit cheesy in some ways, but it's sort of nice cheese, especially when you got that childhood thing to add to it. Had to put Queen in there with "Thank God It's Christmas" because I think it's a fantastic song, and it's a shame it's a Christmas song because it could have been on the works as a main song. Really, I don't know how everyone feels about that. Now I'm going to go to one that's a bit of a. How many of you know Chris Rere's "Driving Home for Christmas"?
Yeah, great tune.
I picked that one because it reminds me. It makes me think even more now, because as everyone knows, I work Christmas. So for me, if I'm working a shift at Christmas, it'll be a case of me thinking all night I'm driving home for Christmas to get back to Louise, to my other half, because there's that distance, and it's almost along the lines of what Kevin was saying earlier, you know, with the people being away at Christmas and some people have to be away in this. It makes me think of that. I don't think that's what his song's about, but that's how I think about it. And then number 5, this is more of a suggestion to people of a song that's barely listened to, not very well known, but I think it's a beautiful song and the artist is incredible. And it's Christmas Will Be Magic Again by Kate Bush.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's one of 2 songs that she's done that are Christmassy, and then you've got the album as well, 50 Words for Snow, which I think is a beautiful album as well, that comes out every Christmas for me. And I just think it's a fantastic song. The melody's gorgeous. The music is just beautiful.
She's a genius.
It is. And so is she. And I'll double down on what Stephen said. I do think that that Phil Spector Christmas album is my favourite Christmas album as well. I also think it's the best production that he's done because sometimes he can be a bit too muddy to my ears.
It is very much, I think, the sound of Christmas these days because it's played. If you go into any department stores or anywhere, or put the radio on, you will find all these different songs are being played throughout December. So it's kind of become this soundtrack, along with Mariah Carey's Christmas song, which is everywhere.
It's in Kev's head now.
I was going to say, if there's one Christmas song I'd strike from the register, that would most likely be it.
But there's that game going around, isn't there, for the Wham song as well? How long can you go without hearing "Last Christmas" by Wham? Apparently,
I think I've heard it already.
I probably have.
Me too.
I heard it when I saw the George Michael the Wham documentary that's on.
It was good, wasn't it?
It's a good documentary. That is really good. Yeah, and I like Andrew Ridgeley's biography as well.
That's a good read. Yeah,
it is. So have we got any? Actually, has anybody else got any album shout outs that they like over Christmas, other than Jingle Cats, maybe? Mike?
Well, I haven't even listened to this one yet, but it is from one of my favorite artists who just put out a Christmas album. I think it literally came in the mail yesterday or the day before or so, which is Ben Folds' Christmas album called Slayer, Sleigher. And this is a mix of, it looks like probably more than half originals and a couple covers. Actually, only 3, it looks like. So I'm very curious to listen to this because how often do you get new Christmas songs? Not even just new recordings of older songs, but actually new songs have been written specifically for Christmas. And I just love Ben Folds. He's one of those guys who could probably sing the phone book, and I'd be happy to listen to it. So there's that. And the other one is maybe a dishonorable mention. Probably about 10 years ago, a friend of mine said, "Hey, you do a lot of audio stuff. Can you convert tapes to MP3s?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I have the facility to do that." And he said, I have this tape of Christmas music that I've never been able to find anywhere else. He's like, it was probably just some guy selling it out of his car type of thing. I'm like, what is it? He said, you're going to laugh. And I was like, well, what is it? And he said, the artist's name is Slim Sphincter and the album is called Christmas Gas. And it is literally what you think it might sound like. It is a guy making fart noises to the melody of Christmas music. And I was like, I have to convert this not only for his purposes, but for my purposes of having this. So now, is it something that I would throw on at a party in the background if anybody would see if they would catch on to it? They probably would catch on too quickly to it at that point. But if you're looking for some just doofy, fun Christmas stuff, again, it's like it certainly can take the piss out of it a little bit there for you. So if any of you guys want it, let me know. I will email the files to you and all. So
does anyone not want that? I need that immediately.
Exactly. Yeah, I think so. Just get it directly into my veins if you can do it. But it's straight fun, and those are the ones. I also have one called Happy Clucking Holidays, which is somebody doing chicken noises to Christmas songs. So you can see a theme with my Christmas music here, but that's, but there are as you guys are talking about the more, serious kind of real Christmas songs. I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. And it's like hearing about this Phil Spector one. I'm like, yeah, that probably has a bunch of stuff I would love to get on there. So again, there may be purchases in my future with this stuff. So. And getting the Elvis one, which I lost when my mom passed away. It's probably was just thrown away with a bunch of other stuff and just missed out on grabbing it. So I might have to re-buy that one too.
Mike's more jingle cats than stray cats.
Exactly. Although they're good too. It's all good stuff out there.
Can I, Marv, make an honorable mention for Christmas in the Stars? The 1980s Star Wars Christmas album.
Oh, of course.
Of course. How could we forget such a classic where you can listen to What Can You Get a Wookiee for Christmas when he already owns a cone?
Wow.
Hey.
Yep. It's not Christmas till that comes on.
But we're all giving contact details later if you want more information.
Exactly.
Have you got an album you go to, Kev, that you want to shout out, album-wise?
I don't know, man. This is just research for me now, because me and Corey on Ultimate Catalog Clash, for Christmas, we're doing a special, and we're comparing. One of the albums we're doing is A Twisted Christmas by Twisted Sister, which is interesting. I'm a little bit nervous about Dee Snider singing I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, because I hope he doesn't add anything into it, but we'll see how that goes. But I think that the Star Wars one, I think I've got to throw that in, because I have to come up with one, so that might well be it. The album that, like I said, I think I've already shouted out is the Mario Lanza Christmas album, Christmas with Mario Lanza. Just because, again, it's very, it's a thing. If you like tenors and you like that kind of music, you'll love it. And if you don't, you'll think, what is this tripe that you're listening to? But again, that nostalgic connection back to growing up. As soon as I listen to that album, I'm 8 years old again, and I'm around my gran and granddad's for Christmas, and granddad's a little bit tipsy, and he's blaming his gas on the dog, and so all those memories just come flooding back, right? So.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though, with that, where you say with the Mario Lanza, when I listen to some Christmas music, for instance, you want real bells or you want real glockenspiel or all these instruments. But if you hear the really cheap synthesized versions of these things, there's something nasty about that to me. When I listen to it, it's like, oh, that's not quite right. You need the real thing in there, I think.
Absolutely. Big full orchestra too. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. What's an album that you love for Christmas, Jason?
It would, for me, it would be one of the old, now that's what I call Christmas albums, but it would be it'd be about 20 years old. I think I've got some of those on my PC, but that's before that was about 20 years ago, which was a turning point when you didn't really have proper Christmas number ones anymore. It became a competition for the Simon Cowell talent competition to get Christmas number one. But before then, there would be proper Christmas number ones. It'd be Christmas related. It'll be some sort of novelty, and it would be different. So just getting all the songs like the Waitress's Christmas Wrapping, Slade, Wizard, a bit of Elton John, just that sort of stuff. Whereas, like over the last 20 years, the Christmas number one, what was it? Is it Lad Baby and Sausage Roll or something kept winning? I mean, it's just utter garbage.
Pressing.
So when Killing in the Name got to number one in UK. Was it 10 years ago or something? Did they put that on the Now Christmas?
Well, that wouldn't. Yeah, so that wouldn't be. So the Now for me would be pre. It'd be like about 20 years. One of the old Nows. That was the Killing, and then that's just a reaction to the garbage that was getting to number one every single year. That was, you're not going to do what you tell me.
Yeah, it was rebellion in a musical form. We've been talking on top of most about the fact, when we talk about Christmas, and Kit and Ed were saying to me that in America, Christmas music wasn't such a big thing, or festive songs weren't such a big thing as they are in the UK. And I was saying to them that I think possibly it's because the UK, we've still got nostalgia for the old vaudeville or music hall, sort of traditional British. And I'm wondering if that's why we gravitate towards these traditional, Christmas songs and these sort of things.
Well, there's no real equivalent in the U.S. for like the Christmas pantomimes that go on and things like that. Like there might be school shows and things like that, but there's maybe like the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall have their show and everything, but it's not kind of the level of, and I don't mean this to even sound dismissive, but kind of like the acceptable cheesiness of those type of shows. That's just part of the fun of the holidays. Americans take stuff way too seriously at times. And so even, making light of Christmas for some people would be, a mortal sin, I think. So, that even some of the, and maybe that's why I have kind of a lot of this goofy stuff too, is like just kind of, trying to deflate the feel of it. But there's also a lot of this music that does really affect me when I hear it. And so, and hearing you guys talk about some of these tracks where I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. It's like, it's been a good reminder for me that there is good music out there that's holiday themed.
What's it like in Canada, Kev? I would have thought it'd be a bit like a bit between what America's like and what Britain's like. Would I be right with that?
Is it a rush Christmas?
Exactly.
Yeah, we all put on 2112. We all salute anyway. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because as you were talking about that, I don't think the Christmas number one is really a thing here. Like no one really cares about that. It's just not a thing. And I think in the same way that you don't get Christmas specials of TV shows either, really. Where that in the UK, you're waiting for the Only Fools and Horses Christmas special, you're waiting for The Office or whatever, whatever the show of the day is, that's just part of the season. So I think that culture around that type of thing just doesn't exist on this side. I don't know why that is. I'm not too sure really, but
it's strange because American films, there's a heck of a lot of good American Christmas films.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Die Hard, and I will die on that hill. It is a Christmas movie.
Right. That is an acceptable opinion in my book. So, and you mentioned Gremlins, I think earlier too, and I was like, yeah, I guess Gremlins fits in with that too. It's not a Christmas movie, but it certainly has that feel to it because it is set at Christmas and everything. So it works out.
Well, in the days before VCR and DVDs and all the streaming media and everything, growing up, like Raiders of the Lost Ark was a Christmas movie because that was on every Christmas, right?
James Bond.
Right. Yeah.
James Bond was always on, yeah.
I think The Wizard of Oz was always shown around Christmas time when I was growing up, and maybe still is, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
Yeah. The fact that Christmas is in the majority of films in one place or another, there's an argument to be made for a lot of films. I mean, even when Harry Met Sally, they must go through 20 different Christmases there.
Sure.
Anyway, it's been fun talking to you all today. I hope you've all enjoyed this.
Very much.
I certainly have. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, first of all, I'll go in order of where you are on my screen. So, Kev, where can people find you and get hold of the show?
Well, you can find the Tom Petty Project, Seaside Pod Review, and Ultimate Carnival Clash wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also got on Discord for a couple of those. We've got a couple of nice Discord communities. And I've recently migrated to Blue Sky, so I'm no longer on the other side. And you can find me at Seaside Pod Review, at Tom Petty Project, or at U Catalog Clash over on Blue Sky.
Okay. Jason?
So the Strange Brew podcast is at thestrangebrew.co.uk. I'm also on Blue Sky, and my handle, I'm not sure, Strange Brew Pod, I think. But I'm also on all the usual podcast platforms as well.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I've also made the migration to Blue Sky, both for the podcast and for the personal account. The Twitter account still exists, and I'm probably going to make a bigger push on the podcast Twitter handle to get people over to Blue Sky. But it's Tabletop Genesis on all places. If you're looking for me personally, it's there's a story behind it, but my name is Zorknapp, Zorknapp, on Blue Sky and Twitter and all that stuff. For Facebook, we still have a podcast account on there where if you search for Tabletop Genesis, you'll find us there. So if you do a Google search for that, that'll end up getting all the important places there. So thank you.
We are everywhere. Stephen?
And rather bizarrely, guess who opened the Blue Sky account today?
Hey, welcome.
So yeah, I think if I remember the handle, I'm sure it's TTMF Podcast. But yeah, you can find us there: Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, website trimthemusicalfat.com.
Okay, thank you very much for chatting with me today, guys. I've loved this.
It's been great. Thank you for inviting us. So this has been a lot of fun.
And happy Christmas.
Yes.
Happy Christmas,
Happy
everybody.
Christmas.
Yes.
Merry Christmas all.
Yep.
I didn't need any new podcasts to listen to. It sounds like I've got some stuff.
You've got something to listen to on the long trips when you have to go more north for those big long trips you have.
It's only 3 or 4 hours. It's all good.
It's fun. You can find Pods Like Us on all social media, I think, including Blue Sky, at Pods Like Us. Simple. And you can contact us through podslikeus@gmail.com, and we have a Patreon page if you want to look for Pods Like Us. But until next time, thank you everyone for listening, and hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us.